Right now, there is money sitting inside the VA's system with veterans' names attached to it, not your regular monthly compensation, not a small adjustment. I am talking about lump sum back pay, one deposit that lands in your account after a claim gets approved. For some veterans, it is $10,000. For others, it is $50,000. And for a real number of veterans, it is well over $100,000 paid out in a single transfer. Here is what ought to make your blood pressure rise. Millions of veterans qualify for that money right now, today, and they have no idea it exists. And a large portion of the ones who do know are sitting at home with an old denial letter in a drawer somewhere, completely convinced that the VA already gave them a final answer, so they stopped. They moved on. They figured the door was shut. That denial letter does not mean what you think it means. The rules that produced it have been rewritten. The system that decided your case the last time you tried is not the system that exists today. And there is a hard date built into the law, December 31st, 2026, that is functioning like a wall for one very specific and very large group of veterans. When that date passes, an entire category of claims gets dramatically harder to pursue, and for many veterans, it will effectively be over. So if that is you, and I will walk you through exactly how to know, then you need to understand what changed, what you may be owed, and the one simple free action that protects your money right now even before you have gathered a single piece of evidence. Because that one action done today can be worth more than almost anything else you do this year. My name is Frank Sutherland. I am a veteran. What I do is go through these regulations and the fine print so that you do not have to read 100 pages of government language to understand what it means for your situation. I am not a physician. I am not a claims examiner. I do not sell consultations. I read the law, I check it against what the VA actually publishes, and I break it down in plain English. That is the whole job. Let me start with the thing everything else in this video depends on. For most of the history of this benefit system, if you got sick from something you were exposed to during your service, the burden of proof sat entirely on you. You had to show you were exposed. You had to show that exposure caused your illness. And you had to produce a physician who would write a formal opinion connecting those dots to the VA satisfaction. For the vast majority of veterans, that was practically impossible. How do you prove, years after coming home, that the lung condition you are living with right now came from the burning pits of waste you were stationed next to overseas? How do you prove the cancer you are fighting today came from chemicals you were sprayed with decades ago? You could not. The VA denied those claims by the millions for decades, and veterans just absorbed the loss. Then the rules were rewritten. And the single most important concept that came out of that rewriting is one word: presumptive. When a condition is classified as presumptive, you no longer carry the burden of proving causation. If you served in a qualifying location during a qualifying time period and you have one of the listed conditions, the VA presumes your service caused it. No fight over what was in the air, no argument about whether the water or the smoke was responsible, no requirement for a doctor to draw the connection. You were there, you have the condition, and the link is presumed to exist. That is the exact opposite of how the VA treats almost every other claim. That shift is the reason more than 1 million of these claims have now been approved. Veterans who spent 20 years being told no are getting approved today because the legal foundation underneath their case finally moved in their direction. Now let me break down who this actually covers, because this is where you figure out whether you are one of them. Burn pits. If you served in Iraq, Afghanistan, or anywhere in the Southwest Asia theater after August of 1990, the VA now presumes you were exposed to toxic smoke from open burn pits. The list of conditions tied to that presumption includes chronic respiratory illnesses and a range of cancers. If you were present and you carry one of those diagnoses, even if it showed up years after you came home, you likely qualify without ever having to prove where it came from. Agent Orange. For veterans who served in Vietnam or in surrounding countries and territories during that era, an extensive list of conditions is now presumptive. That list has been expanded over time. Hypertension was added, which matters enormously because a significant percentage of older veterans live with high blood pressure and have never once thought to connect it to their service. Additional cancers and illnesses that veterans fought the VA over for decades are on the list now, too. For conditions that appear on it, the argument is finished. Camp Lejeune. If you were stationed there for at least 30 days during the roughly 35-year period when the base drinking water was contaminated with industrial chemicals, the VA presumes you were exposed. A defined set of serious diagnoses is presumptive for you. You do not have to prove the water caused your condition. The law already presumes it did. And here is something worth holding on to. The law requires the VA to keep reviewing conditions for possible addition to these lists. Another round is under evaluation right now, and several are expected to be added. Your condition may not appear on the presumptive list this morning and could be on it before the year ends. That connects directly to the step I am about to give you. If you get your foot in the door now and your condition becomes presumptive later, your back pay can reach all the way back to the date you first established your intent, not the day the condition was added to the list, the day you filed notice that you were coming. Now I have to get to the deadline because this is the part that is not being explained clearly enough, and it is the most time-sensitive piece of everything I am covering. If you served in the Southwest Asia theater during the Gulf War era, and you have been carrying chronic symptoms that your doctors have never been able to attach a clean diagnosis to, the next few minutes are aimed directly at you. There is a specific pathway in the VA regulations built for exactly that situation. It covers what the law calls an undiagnosed illness or a chronic multi-symptom illness that medicine cannot fully explain. These are not vague complaints. They are real daily symptoms with no official label. Persistent fatigue that does not improve with rest. Headaches that keep coming back. Pain in your joints or muscles that shifts around without a clear cause. Difficulty with memory and focus. Sleep that never actually restores you. Gastrointestinal problems. Skin conditions. Real symptoms that veterans have been dismissed for over decades because they could not hand the VA a single clean diagnosis. This pathway exists, so the absence of a diagnosis does not eliminate your claim. If you served in that theater and you are living with these kinds of chronic symptoms, service connection can be presumed without you ever needing to name the condition. Here is the wall. The VA legal authority to grant that presumption is set to expire on December 31st, 2026. That deadline is written directly into the regulation. The disability has to be established at a compensable rating level by that date. After it passes, unless Congress acts to extend it, that entire pathway closes. A veteran with those same symptoms the following day would have to go back to proving direct service connection on their own, which is the near impossible standard that produced a generation of denials in the first place. So if you are a Gulf War era veteran who has been living with unexplained chronic symptoms that the VA already waived off because no diagnosis was attached to them, this is your window, and it closes on a specific date. Now let me give you the tool that turns all of this into actual money, because this is where veterans either protect tens of thousands of dollars or leave it sitting in the system without ever knowing. It is called an intent to file. When the VA approves a claim, it calculates back pay based on your effective date. That date is the entire ballgame. It determines whether you are owed 2 months of back pay or 2 years. If you sit down today and file your complete claim from scratch and the VA takes the better part of a year to process it, your back pay starts today. But if 12 months ago you had submitted a simple intent to file and then completed your claim later, your effective date reaches back to that earlier moment. Now you are owed an extra full year of back pay for the identical claim, the same condition, the same documentation. The only difference is that you planted a marker early. Filing an intent to file takes roughly 5 minutes. You can do it on the VA website, by phone, or through a free veteran service officer. No evidence required, no medical records, no proof of anything. All you are doing is notifying the VA on the record that you intend to pursue a claim. That act locks your effective date in place and gives you up to a full year to return and file the full claim. I have seen veterans collect $25,000, $50,000 and more in back pay purely because they established that early date and let their claim run its normal course. And I have watched veterans lose that exact same amount, not because they did not qualify, but because they filed the complete claim cold without protecting the date first. If there is any reasonable chance that anything in this video applies to your situation, go file the intent to file today. It costs nothing, it locks in nothing except your date, and it can be the most financially significant 5 minutes you spend this entire year. Before you do anything else after this video ends, do that one thing, the rest can follow. But that date needs to be on record. Now I want to address the thing that stops more veterans than almost any other obstacle, the old denial letter. I hear the same thing nearly every week. I already filed. The VA said no. I know I am out, and I understand why veterans feel that way. The system trained them to feel exactly that way over decades of rejections. But here is what needs to land. A denial issued under the old rules does not make you ineligible under the new ones. Those are two entirely different legal standards. If you filed years ago for a respiratory condition tied to burn pit smoke and got denied because you could not prove causation, that decision was made under a system where the burden sat entirely on your shoulders. Under the presumptive standard that applies to those exposures today, you do not carry that burden at all. The case that lost then could win now. The path forward is a supplemental claim. You refile, and the new evidence is the law itself. The regulation changed. The presumption changed. Your eligibility changed with it. Veterans who were turned down 3 and 4 times are being approved within months of refiling under the updated standards. A letter written under a system that no longer exists does not get the final word on your future. Let me make this concrete. Think about a veteran who served in Iraq in the mid-2000s with a burn pit running near where he lived and worked every single day. He came home with his lungs permanently changed. He filed a claim, denied because he could not prove the pit caused it. He filed again a few years later, denied again for the same reason. So he quit. He lived with that condition for more than a decade without compensation. Convinced the system had given him its final answer. When the rules changed, someone told him to refile. He did not believe it would matter. They already said no twice, he said. But he submitted the claim with his diagnosis and his service record showing where he had been stationed. Under the presumptive standard that now applied, the VA approved him. Because he had protected his date early, his back pay stretched back over a year. The deposit came to more than $25,000. Nothing about his service changed. The rules moved, and someone finally told him in time. Here are the steps. Step 1. Identify your exposure or your symptoms. Burn pits, Agent Orange, Camp Lejeune water, another documented toxic exposure, or chronic unexplained symptoms as a Gulf War era veteran. Know where you served and what you have been living with. Step 2. File the intent to file today. va.gov or by phone. 5 minutes. No evidence. It locks your date while you build the rest. Step 3. Gather your documentation, your service record showing where and when you were deployed, and medical records showing the condition you have now. For presumptive claims, this is usually all you need. Step 4. File the claim. Accredited veteran service officers at the VFW, the DAV, the American Legion, and your county veterans office will help you file it correctly at no cost. That is specifically what they exist to do. Step 5. If you were denied before, file a supplemental claim. Point to the changed regulation. The presumption that applies to your condition did not exist when your original claim was decided. That is new and relevant evidence. And the supplemental process was designed for exactly this. And I need every Gulf War era veteran to hear this one final time. December 31st, 2026 is not a someday concern. Claims take time to process. The VA does not move quickly. If you wait until late 2026 to start, there is a real chance the window closes before your claim is fully established. The point of the deadline is that when it passes, it is gone. Go to va.gov right now and file the intent to file. 5 minutes. No evidence. Just your name on record that you are coming. That one act can be worth more than anything else in this conversation. And then do this. Think of one veteran you know, especially someone who served during the Gulf War era. Someone who has been carrying symptoms for years with no answers and is certain the VA closed the door on them because of a denial they got years ago. Send this video directly to them, not as a suggestion, because there is a clock running that they do not know about, and a check with their name on it that the VA has never once picked up the phone to mention. The system does not work that way. It pays out what veterans file for and nothing more. If nobody tells them, nobody will. The veterans collecting this money are not luckier than them. They found out in time and they filed. Now they know. And so do you.